Hey, this is Allie Edwards and happy July. I'm here to give you a recap of the books that I read this month. And you're actually going to see me later on in the video sitting here in the same spot looking exactly the same because I thought I had recorded the first two books or reflections on the first two books. And I think that I did, but I also think that I deleted them when I did a big clean out of movie files that I had on my computer that was just slowing things down. So to recap, the first two books that I read a lot of books this month, and you're going to hear in the other couple of videos me talking about them. The first two books that I read, the first one was George, which is, I can't remember if I talked about that last month. It's a book that's targeted actually to like third and fourth graders, and the people in my local book club here, we decided to read that because it's part of what's called Oregon Battle of the Books, which is a elementary school, maybe even later grade schools, but I think elementary school kind of a reading program where they have competitions after they read these books. And so it's a somewhat controversial book. George is the name of it, but it's about a transgender child. And so my book club, we read it as part of kind of an ongoing discussion related to transgender issues and wanting to learn more about that. And I thought it was a great book. I think I have Anna reading it, so Anna's going to be in fourth grade. And just, a sweet story, I think, about friendship and about embracing differences, and differences come in all kinds of shapes and sizes, and the idea of being loving and kindness towards each other and within our families as well. So check that one out if you're interested in that, or if you're interested in looking for something for your kids to read surrounding that topic. I felt like it was a good book for that. The other book that I read at the beginning of this month is called The Hillbilly Elegy, which is a memoir. And I know that a lot of people have talked about that book in the past. I picked it up as a paperback because I had heard about it. And as you guys know, one of my things is to read different voices. And I posted about reading this book, I think, on Instagram, and got some interesting feedback from people who felt like it really did not represent that particular piece of the country in Appalachia. And one of the things that one of my responses was that when I read something like that, a memoir like that, I don't automatically take that person's perspective and then make that the blanket perspective for all of the people that live in that region or that area. In this book in particular, it's the story of this guy growing up in poverty. What was that like? Very much a dysfunctional family situation. What was that like? How did that impact his educational choices down the line? It was just somebody telling their story, and that is something that most of you guys know that I encourage people to do, right? And I thought it was really interesting. So I definitely, just from a general knowledge standpoint and wanting to read how other people write their own stories, I thought it was really good, and I'm really glad that I read that one. So those were the first two books I read, and next up you're going to hear about the others. Hey, it's Allie, and I am actually here. I wanted to make sure that I recorded some of my thoughts on these couple of books. Even though I am not at home, I'm actually on a trip that I was able to take down in Arizona to a wellness conference, which was really awesome. And I finished two books while I was here. I actually finished one on the plane and then one the first day that I was here. So the first one that I read this month, or the first one that I read at least on this trip, was the David Sedaris book called Calypso. And this is my first time reading David Sedaris. I posted about that on Instagram, and some people were really surprised that that was my first time reading David Sedaris. And I had mentioned something about how I think that I haven't picked up his books before because I don't always go towards funny books or I definitely like memoirs, and his books are memoirs, and they're more short stories, kind of little snippets of life, which is obviously something that I actually would like, and I did like it, so I'm definitely going to be checking out more of his books. I like his writing style. I like his satire or his sarcasm, that you can hear that coming through in his writing, and I like that he is writing everyday life kinds of stories, right? He is elevating the stuff of regular life into this kind of literary form, and I really like that. And there definitely are laugh out loud kinds of things that you will read in there, and it sounds like that's the same with all of his books as well. So I will definitely be checking out some more of those. Also, a lot of people mentioned that if you like listening to audiobooks, he reads either most or all of his audiobooks, and people really like hearing them in his voice as well. And I think he's been a contributor to This American Life and some other shows like that. So David Sedaris, Calypso, I will definitely be reading more by him. The second book that I read on this trip, and this is the one that I actually read like within a 24-hour period, is the Book of Ess. And this one is by Megan McLean Weir. I started this one the morning of my trip, and I finished it by the following morning. And that was a day where I had a couple different flights and waiting time, and then was able to sit by the pool before this event that I came to started. And I really liked this book. I thought it was obviously a fast read. I was very into it. I wanted to know what was going to happen in the story, and it's just a very interesting story of a young woman, mainly her story, and kind of the interwoven other characters' stories as well, as she is navigating being a part of a family that has a television show, like a reality TV show, and her father is a pastor, and there's a bunch of things that come up. There's some trigger things in this story related to family and abuse. So if that's something that you look out for, you might want to look out for that related to this book. But I thought the writing was really good. It was a really well crafted story. I like how the whole entire thing moved, the movement of the story, I guess I could say, and the resolution as well at the end. It's a little bit of a mystery, that the element is there of kind of trying to figure out how this is going to unravel, but not in a scary kind of suspenseful way. It's more just a who type of story. So I definitely would recommend that one if you're looking. I think this would probably be a pretty good beach read, except that it's not super light, so it depends on what you like to read at the beach, and I like to read a variety, or the pool, or wherever you like to read anyway. I just, as you guys know, like to read lots of books. So those were the first two I read. I think that's the first two for this month, but I may be forgetting that I already read something else, and you may see that before this part as well. But next up for me, I am reading my book club. My in-person book club, we're reading Crazy Rich Asians, and so I am partway into that one, and I'll give you a review when I'm done. And that one we actually, in our book club, we read because we had just read a couple books that were transgender related books, so a little bit more of a serious topic, and this was one that somebody suggested, and there's actually a movie coming out about it. So I'm already probably a quarter of the way into it, and kind of just getting to learn who all of the characters are, and it's definitely a lighter read. Hey guys, I'm here to just give you an update on the last two books I read. I read a lot of books this month, and I'm really happy about that. One I read for my personal book club here locally is called Crazy Rich Asians, and it's a title that just feels wrong to even say out loud. It is a fun, light, silly, I would say silly kind of read. Somebody compared it to like reading a book about the Kardashians. except in like Singapore. And I don't really watch Kardashians. I don't know exactly how that goes, but I know I get the gist. It is, I thought it was a quick read, fun, like I said, a super nice light summer reading. It is part of a series, and when you finish this book, it's likely that you will want to jump into the next book, because when you finish this one, it doesn't necessarily feel like you completed the story. Like, there's obviously more coming. I haven't decided yet whether or not I am going to continue on in the series, only because I have a lot of other books in my pile that I want to read. So that should tell you something in terms of how much it motivated me to pick up the next one. I think for me, it's not the kind of book that I normally read. Like, I don't often read light, funny, kind of more humorous books. Even like reading David Sedaris is another example of that. I mean, his is more nuanced funny, I feel like. But I did enjoy this book, and I did enjoy the story, and I felt like it was fun. So if you're looking for something that's kind of a fun, light read, I would check this one out. Then the last book that I read this month is one that I picked up in the last bookstore in LA when I was down there for a conference with Jessica Turner. Actually, she and I and Katie went there. This one is called The Female Persuasion, and I just picked it up off the shelf partly because I think the cover was interesting. I felt like I had heard some people talk about it. I got this one and the one about the railroad that I haven't read yet. Those are the two books that I bought. So this book, Female Persuasion, it was what I said in my Instagram post about it was that I didn't love it and I didn't hate it. It is a long book, so it definitely, I feel like it took a while to get through, and I felt like there was some like slogging through for me, but it has really interesting themes in it. So themes about feminism and themes about female mentorships and what those kinds of relationships look like. One of the things that I also like about this book is I like books that cover the passage of time. So sometimes when you read a story, the story only lasts a really quick amount of time, like over the course of a month or over the course of a day or something like that. It's of limited duration. This book is definitely spans decades, where you're starting out following this girl in high school, and the other main characters too. Some of them are a little bit older at that point in time, but then kind of out, through college, out into the working world and beyond. So you're scanning this longer period of time. And I like that kind of storytelling for the depth that comes from that. I'm not sure what it is that I didn't actually love about this book. Like, I really liked it. I think I will probably think about it. But I didn't love it. Like I didn't feel like this about this book. I just felt like, yeah, those are some hard issues and, different things that happen through the course of the book. So I think that if you like this kind of topic, it feels relevant to the age that we're living in. I feel like there's some relevancy to social issues, kind of. I don't even know the right way to talk about it, but I definitely thought it was interesting. I'm glad that I read it. Just because I want to be reading different kinds of things, right? Different kinds of genres, not all the same. For a while there, I was reading like suspense all the time. So this month, especially, I feel like I've kind of branched out and had kind of a nice variety of books to read. So that is a look at what I read in June 2018. I hope you guys have a great month. Also, for book of the month, for July, I picked one book this month, which is The Last Time I Lied. And that book, I don't have it right here, but that book is by the same author who wrote The Final Girls, which I think I read, or Final Girls. I think I read that a year or so ago, and it's definitely suspense, definitely like a quick sit by the pool kind of read. So I have already started that one, so I'm partway into that. And it probably won't take very long once I sit down and read it, so I'm kind of trying to get a lot of work done before I sit down and actually dive into that. But that's my book of the month pick for July. And I will be back here next month with whatever I end up reading in July as well.